Welcome to Hardwood Handicappers with Zach Cohen, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Zachary Cohen, VSiN.com senior editor with another episode of Hardwood Handicappers. Hardwood Handicappers is sponsored by Better Picks, the fantasy app that turns your basketball takes into cash. Download the Better app and use code VSiNPod to get $10 free. No deposit needed. That's VSiNPod, VSiNPOD. We have a link for that in the description. Today is Thursday, December 18th. We are recording this at 9 a.m. Eastern, and I am joined by JVT, co-host of Money Moves, JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel. Sorry, I left out your full name, but we have a loaded slate for today. How are you doing?
Well, first off, we're both West Coasters, so get that Eastern time out of here. All right, it's 6 o'clock in the morning for us. Let the people know what we do every single day, and I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to today. I thought yesterday was more of like a college basketball day. There were some fun games, but today, with a full slate, with the league kind of getting back on schedule, I'm looking forward to a lot of these games later tonight.
Yeah, well, some of us are mountain timers, by the way, so it's actually 7:10 a.m. Eastern for me for whatever reason. But yeah, I am looking forward to tonight's games. I don't really have much for last night. I mean, I was excited to see another Grizzlies victory, even though it was a game that Anthony Edwards didn't play, and the Cavaliers just continue to struggle. I do not know what is going on with them, but it's a team that I think we all thought had a chance to be the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, but now starting to really look like they're having some problems. And I kind of think that they're going to be involved in some major trades at the deadline. I don't know what they are, but yeah, that's my only small takeaway from last night. You got anything?
No, just the fact that after watching last night and knowing that once again for the Memphis Grizzlies, just like the Los Angeles Clippers did, at least there's a little bit of retribution. The other night, it was on Monday where I had to watch my guy for the Memphis Grizzlies, Cam Spencer, drop 27 or what? No, excuse me, 8. Was it? Yeah, 27. It was 27 points on them, and then screaming to the Clippers bench, "Get him the F off me!"
Yeah,
as he was bunking them. So, at least I didn't have to watch that again. But Grizz are starting to turn it around. They can still be the team you expected them to be. So there's still plenty of season left.
Yeah, I think so. There's a real chance that they win 40 plus. I don't know what's going on with the Spencer brothers. Hopefully everything's okay, because I saw both of them are out for personal reasons last game. So hopefully everything's going right there. Those are two of my favorite players in the league to watch this year. But we're not going to waste any time today because there are so many games on this slate. We got to talk about all of them. We're going to start with Hawks Hornets. Tips at 7 p.m. Eastern. This is a game where I think Trae Young looks like he might be returning for Atlanta. The Hawks are laying 5.5. Totals 238.5. Like I just mentioned, Young is questionable. That's a huge upgrade on his status over the last couple of weeks. And Kristaps Porzingis is out, and I think LaMelo Ball is questionable for the Hornets. Do you have anything here?
Yeah, so I didn't have an actual play. I do have some play angles that I wanted to throw at you because obviously Young's performance and his return is going to be a big one. And it sounds like you said, if you read between the lines, that he's going to be back here for this game. So the question becomes, what does he do for this team? They're 13-9 straight up and against the spread since he's come back. It's a smallish sample size, but it's still quite a few games. When he's been on the floor before he got injured, a defensive rating of 125.7. The minutes that he is off the floor, a defensive rating of 113.9. They're way better with him defensively or without him defensively. I'm more curious. His point total props at 18.5. It's right around where he's averaged before he got hurt. And I wanted to read this quote to you. Quote, "For me, since day one, I've always felt I was a puzzle piece to the big puzzle. I never felt like I was the whole puzzle. I'm about to come back and do the same thing, just be another piece to the puzzle and try to fit in." I do wonder if the market, 18.5 for a guy playing for the first time in 22 games, who's clearly espousing, if you read all of the quotes and stuff coming out of it, he's very clearly and his game is like that too. I think the stat is he's setting more ball screens this year. Obviously the scoring's down. He is very clearly, Zach, willing to be kind of a cog a little bit more than he is like the actual machine. And I wonder if 18.5 for him in a game like this, I understand it's Charlotte and there's probably going to be more possessions and they're not a great defensive team. But you do wonder if maybe 18.5 seems a little high given everything he said and his willingness to kind of ease back in after a long layoff, as opposed to coming right back out, dominating shot share, dominating usage, and really doing, Trae Young type things. I think he's more willing to take a back seat to this team.
Yeah, and then, you added the fact he's probably going to be on a minutes restriction, too. 18.5 is pretty high if he's only going to be playing 20 or so minutes. So I could definitely see him going under that number. It is probably going to be an up-and-down game. Both these teams like to get up and down, and I do think, both of these teams can struggle to guard, especially when Young is in the lineup. But I think that would probably be the call, the under on his point total. I mean, I am going to play, I don't know what you think about this one, but I am playing Onyeka Okongwu over 16.5 points at -115, just because it's another game without Porzingis. It's another game he's going to have a huge role. And he had 20 points against this Charlotte team on November 23rd. The Hornets, for like as good as Kalkbrenner can look at times, like they have not really guarded the rim very well. They're also really poor at defending above the break threes. And those are two areas of the floor that account for 63% of Okongwu's points. So I think he's going to end up having a pretty good game as a finisher and a shooter. And if Young is back, like that's only more playmaking to kind of set him up with good shots at the rim or good pick and pop opportunities. So I think he's going to end up having a good game. And if Young is not back, then you're talking about the same lineup that Okongwu has had 18 plus in, I think, 10 of the last 15 games.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a ton of sense for what you've seen from Okongwu and what they're probably going to do with him here in a game like this. But my other angle here, too, was where do they put Trae Young on defense when he's playing? So my thought was, is he just are they going to try to hide him on Knippel? Like, Knippel, like most of his shots are assisted. So you're just going to kind of hope that he can chase him around. But like, the first game back, the angle was for me to Knippel over 3.5 3-pointers. Like it's +115. This is not one I have bet either, but I was curious what they're going to try to do with Trae Young in a game like this, working his way back. Where in the world do you hide him? It's not like the Hornets are like, rife with individual ball creators. But if one guy was going to make sense, you'd probably try to hide him on. I guess it would be Knippel. Is there anybody else?
No, it pretty much has to be Knippel. I mean, because I don't think you're going to try him on LaMelo. I mean, LaMelo would just torch him if he plays. And even if it's not LaMelo, and who would end up starting at guard? Whoever it is would just end up just roasting him. So I think you're better off hoping it's Knippel, playing Knippel, hoping he could stick with him and not let him get free off the ball too much. But like you said, like that is a good angle because Young is going to get lost off the ball a couple times. And he also Knippel could probably create on him in isolation.
I think so too. Yeah. I think Knippel's good enough too. Like even with Trae, if he's late to a closeout or something, like he can attack that closeout against Trae and do something with it. So I think Knippel, obviously he's been great. So Stormy Bonatoni, my co-host on Money Moves, her husband is from the Charlotte area. He's a big Hornets fan. And so we were out Sunday watching all the football games. And during all of that, to invoke the Cavaliers one more time, we're watching the Hornets, beat the Cavs in overtime. And I'm sitting here telling him, we're arguing back and forth about who the Hornets' best player is. And he's like, no, it's Knippel. I'm like, dude, it's Brandon Miller. Screw you. And then Miller hits the big three. Like it's great, but Knippel's been awesome. And I think he's good enough here with his athleticism and everything like that to take advantage of Young. I think I don't want to overreact though, in terms of, like you said, minutes restriction. How many times is he really going to match up with Trae Young? But looking at some Knippel stuff is also on my radar.
Yeah, I really like Knippel, but I saw some quote from an unnamed front office member that said that like Knippel's the face of the franchise now, and I don't think you want to get to that point. Like I really, really like him, but you got to hope that Brandon Miller turns into what you said he was going to be, or hope that LaMelo can find a way to stay healthy. Like that's the path forward, I believe.
I would agree.
All right, well, let's move on to Knicks at Pacers. Knicks laying 4.5, totals 225.5. New York coming off an NBA Cup title, a tournament that I very much enjoyed. I hope you did as well, but it is a very interesting game because the Pacers have not played since Sunday. Very little mileage there. Meanwhile, the Knicks, I'd have to assume, I did not see any pictures or anything outside of a fake picture of Jalen Brunson wearing a Knicks hat in a Vegas club, but I've got to assume that they did celebrate it somewhere in Vegas after that win, and I think that's why you're seeing OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns, and Mitchell Robinson all listed as questionable.
Yeah, like the line move here is obviously all of those guys maybe not playing. If there was a time to give them all the night off, it would probably be this. They probably didn't go like finals hard, but you win the championship, you're in Vegas, you have a day off in between, and you're playing the Pacers on the road on on Thursday. If there was a time to just kind of go ham and then give some guys a night off, because they've been on such a good run too. Like you have the leeway to essentially give a game, if you will. I think it would be this. So this was one that immediately, I think I texted you guys like Knicks letdown after a championship coming up on Thursday, but like this probably is the spot after playing on a neutral, playing out in Las Vegas, doing whatever they did, and then now coming out here to play in Indiana. I don't want to call it a Hornets nest, but a team and a fan base that is probably pretty randy to get some sort of victory over them as well. It seems like this is a pretty good spot for Indiana.
Yeah, and honestly, when you texted that, I went and looked at it, and it was like 6.5 or 7, and I ended up like saying like, oh yeah, I am going to look at that and maybe take it. It ended up going down a little bit too much for me, so I actually ended up parlaying the Pacers plus 10.5 with the Suns later on at plus 8.5, and I got that at minus 118, just because I do think that those are going to be two teams that keep the games close tonight. But yeah, I don't really want to play it at 4.5, just because I do think that there's a chance that even if New York is tired and shorthanded, that like Brunson just goes out there with a group of hard-nosed players and still finds a way to steal it late. So I just don't like the regular spread here.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, to your point, with all these questionables, if like two of the guys play, this point spread's going to go back up like a little bit. You know, it's not probably going to get to like 7.5, but a number that's 4.5 now, maybe getting back up to like 5.5, 6. If a couple of these guys are active, then I think that's the problem you run into. So just sit back away. If you do like the spot, and regardless of who plays, you're going to be able to get a better number, I'm pretty sure, by the time we get to tip off, because I don't think all of the questionables that you mentioned, I don't think they're all going to miss the game. So you're going to be able to get, I think, a little bit more out of this number.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say Josh Hart's the most likely to miss it because he is listed with an abdominal strain, but he's also got to have an injured thumb too.
You took my joke. Yeah.
Either an injured thumb, stinky thumb. So there's something going on there. But
after pressing it into the firm buttocks of Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, which he said afterwards was AI, by the way. So.
That's a good joke, actually. Yeah. Did you see there was like a slow-mo, like he can't beat the allegations because there was actually like a slow-mo, like multicam view of it or something like that. So they're like lifting up the trophy, and then you see in slow motion Brunson like swing back around.
What did you think about that Knicks run, by the way? You view them as by far the best team in the Eastern Conference at the moment, right?
Yes, they have to be. I mean, like you said, we thought the Cavs could be it. They're not. The Celtics have cooled off because they just went on a torrid shooting stretch over the course of 12 games. You and I covered that, I think, a couple of times here on these Thursdays. They seem to be head and shoulders the best team in the Eastern Conference. You can maybe make an argument for like on an off day, whatever it is, but this new look offense, which, to use the term that I think many of you use, the egalitarian look of it, not just like, hey, Jalen Brunson, dribble the ball 60 times and then let's see if you can bail us out. No, like they're moving the ball, they're shooting it well. I think that they are, no question, the best team in the Eastern Conference. And if these versions of these teams are what we're looking at in the postseason, I think it'd be an upset and frankly disappointing if they weren't in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I actually put it the same way to a few of my Knicks fans friends. I said, like, at this point, you have to be expecting the NBA Finals, and anything short of that would be a bit of a disappointment. I think the Pistons, like, early on have been kind of the team that have looked closest, and we did see Detroit play them close last year, but I said yesterday on the pod, like, I think they need to make one move. I don't know what it is, but, like, they feel like they're a shot maker away. Like, not like a bench shot maker like Karis LeVert or Jaden Ivey, like a legitimate starting shot maker. I've talked about Larry Markkinen in there, but I don't think that the Jazz are going to trade him, but don't know who that could be on the open market at the moment. But I do think that they need to add something. It just feels like unlikely to me that you win a series against the Knicks with Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren as your two best players.
Yeah, like I think they put it well. When I was watching the Celtics Pistons game the other day, and so they're in like a little crunch time game, and they're closing it out, and they're kind of trying to, the way they put it on the broadcast was like, you really have to decide if you're the Pistons between spacing and defense when you're closing out some of these games, because they don't really have like a good two-way force that can at least kind of negate some of that. And so like if you put like Asar out there, then like what's that going to look like with him and Duren and everybody else? And so then you have to like offset that with like Duncan Robinson. And it's like, well, okay, like how does that look? So I'm with you. Like they like to close out some of these tight games that they're going to be in the postseason. They just need another reliable like guy who can create while also not being an absolute black hole on defense. And I think that's something that if they get that, then I would trust in them a little bit more, but that is going to be, I think, a slight problem for them.
Yeah, it's funny because the trade that I think that they should make, and I think I brought it up to you a few weeks ago, and I actually heard Simmons and Lowe like joking about it as a bad idea the other day, is I genuinely do think that if they can't afford Lowry, which I don't think that they can, that they're the team that should go after Kawhi, because I just think that the price would be way lower. They can get him at a reasonable price. And I think that like he fits perfectly because that is a two-way star when he's out there. And maybe you don't have him like for the availability you're looking for, but as long as he's healthy in the playoffs, I think you can go to war with the Knicks with Kawhi, Cade, and Duren.
Hey, as a Clippers fan, I'll take Jaden Ivey. Let's go.
Yeah, take Ivey, take Holland. Just
I think I like Holland more. But
I like Holland a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on to Heat at Nets now. The Heat are laying 6.5 in this game. Totals 227.5. Do you like anything here?
No, I think this was one of my easy cross-offs. I know that Hero's not going to play as usual, and we've talked a little bit about the Nets and how they've been a little bit pluckier. I texted you guys the other day when I was watching, I think it was Heat Raptors, and we watched Jovic fall really hard. I think the term I used was, I think he broke his ass, because that looked pretty hard for him. But this team, you don't really like, I think some of the comments from Miami, I think it was Bam Adebayo who was talking about like, hey, like, there might be figuring out our offense. We've got to make some adjustments here. I still think big picture, this team's great, but I didn't have like a strong angle for either one here.
Yeah, I think there were the Bam comments, and then there was like, I think it was JJ Redick who, like, or maybe it was an old clip, just like really easily explaining how they're just going to get the ball up the floor, they're going to go one-on-one, and they're going to attack really fast, and like it makes it easy to prepare for. That it might be different, to start the year, but like it's not something that's groundbreaking. And I think I'll add on the fact that, like, I noted it, a couple of weeks ago. It's like they were number one in pace and they looked great, but at the same time, like they were only like 15th in offensive rating. So yeah, it just wasn't all that efficient, even though it did look a lot better than what we've seen in the past. I did end up playing the Nets plus 7.5 here. I got that at minus 120. That actually ended up being the difference maker for me. It was 6.5 everywhere at like minus 105, minus 108, and I found 7.5 at MGM. I think DK had minus 122. So I think that you get to that key number of 7.5. That makes it a play for me. But yeah, we've talked about it. Like, this Heat team has lost 5 straight. 2-7 against the spread in the last 9, and the Nets are 4-2 straight up and against the spread over the last 6. Over that span, they are number 2 in the NBA in defensive rating, and I don't think that's going to be sustainable. I don't think they're going to play at an OKC level all year, but I think that Jordi Fernandez finally has like the buy-in that he had from the Nets to start last season, and he's one of the best coaches in the league. So I do think this is a really good spot to back them. And under Fernandez, they're 24-20-1 against the spread versus teams with winning records, and 20-16 against the spread as underdogs of 3.5 to 9.5. So I think this is a game they're going to be able to keep close. I wouldn't even be surprised if they won this, to be honest. Sure.
And I think to add to the Heat point as well, I thought it was, I can't remember who brought this up, but it's been pointed out by a few people since, this offense for the Memphis Grizzlies last year, it started off well too, and then it really fell off a cliff as more film was out there on it, and that seems to maybe be some of the shelf life for this team. Like, you got to find some sort of different nuances to the offense, and if you're just going to be, hey, let's just sprint up the floor and just just dribble drive and just do all these things, like, I guess that'll work for a little bit, but once you start to get into the throes of an NBA regular season, teams are going to start to figure it out, and it seems to be the case.
Yeah, maybe it'll look a little better if they throw Giannis into the mix, but I don't know if they're getting that Rozier pick. It doesn't seem like, at least not now. I don't know.
No. What do they have to offer?
I don't know. Yeah, what do they have? 3 picks, and if they get the Rozier one, they'd have 4. I don't know, maybe 2. Yeah. And if they get Rozier, they'd have 3. I don't know. They don't have enough. I mean, it would take Ware, and it would take nobody else really being in the conversation, which maybe that is the case right now. It doesn't seem like there's a huge market at the moment. All right. We're going to do now your Clippers. I tried to spare you with this one. This is one of my cross-offs for me, just because it is such a big point spread. But the Clippers are going and taking on the Thunder in OKC. OKC's laying 16.5. Totals 221.5. You have something on this. Let the people know.
Okay, so there's 2 things here. One I have actually bet. The other was a side, but it's starting to move a little bit here. But first off, as I put in my notes, like, Clippers plus 18, like, really? Like, they can't, like, I know Harden's not playing, but like, they don't have enough pride. And I gave you credit. I even wrote this down in my notes. Like, remember the last time we talked about them when I was on the pod on Thursday? I can't remember, was it Atlanta or whoever? No, it wasn't Atlanta.
Houston, right?
Houston.
They were like getting 10 against Houston or something, 9.5. Yeah. And
it was off extended rest. Like, they had been off for 3 days, and just good for the old bones to maybe just get some time off. And that might be it. I know they got kicked by one of the Spencer brothers in the teeth on Monday. But extended rest with some old dudes, maybe that's beneficial for them. I just feel like, man, like, they don't have enough pride to stay inside 18, but that's not like the real thing. And by the way, the 18s that I saw are now gone. 17.5 is like the predominant number. So somebody out there is thinking it just like me. But the actual bet for me here was Zubac over 24.5 points and rebounds. So I think you can look at this 2 ways. I think you could say, with no Harden out there, he loses somebody to toss him up some lobs and whatnot, and maybe that takes away from some of his ability to score. But I look at it of, okay, we're going to have to find offense in some other way. And if you look at the Thunder injury report today, no Hartenstein, no Jalen Williams, the big one. It's really just going to be Chet Holmgren out there. So that's a really good physical matchup, I think, for Zubac. If you're smart, I feel like Ty Lue is going to use some of the possessions to just post Zubac up against Chet Holmgren and let him work a little bit more. In some of the possessions where you catch the Thunder playing smaller without Holmgren, he should be able to get some rebounds out there as well. Maybe some good second chance opportunities too. Without Hartenstein on the floor, this Thunder team only rebounds about like 17% of their missed shots. Like, it's actually really bad. They don't get a lot of second chance opportunities. So those are defensive rebounds that when Hartenstein out there, with Zubac out there, he should be able to grab those. And I just expect that they should run a little bit more through him and just straight up ISO possessions and see what he's got. And I think if that's the case, over 24.5 points and rebounds, that should be with him. He played one game without Harden. It was against your Suns. He had 14 shot attempts. He had 23 and 11. I think that, and that's only one game. He's averaged only 11, so it's a little off from what he averages on a night-to-night basis. But I felt like with the injury report and without Harden, feel like you could get a pretty decent Zubac game tonight.
Yeah, the only thing I'd hope, I wished it was available, was like a first half points and rebounds, which they only do first quarter, but that would have been a really good look, because I do think there is a chance that like heading into the fourth, it is out of hand and just doesn't play a lot. But yeah, you would think that they should be able to find a way to stay within 18. Like, this is a team that we thought was going to contend in the Western Conference, and even without Harden, they have some players out there, but I don't think I'm at the point where I can trust that they're a prideful unit.
They haven't shown you anything, yeah.
Yeah, they haven't. And like, I don't know, the Chris Paul stuff that came out with Ramona Shelburne over the weekend, like, that was worse than I couldn't even imagine. Like, I think that we all knew that it was just kind of Chris Paul wanting to win and them kicking him out because he was annoying, but like the extent of it was crazy.
But what's also weird is, like, if it sounds like some of the players like don't agree with him getting kicked off the team.
With one being Kawhi.
Yeah, with one being Kawhi, the fact that John Collins is quoted as saying, like, yeah, we kick their ass every single day. Like, it's a weird dynamic that seems to be coming from, and I know you don't like him now, and I think rightfully so. I think it sounds like it's Ty Lue. Like, it sounds like it's 100% Ty Lue that didn't want him and made it happen. He was looking bad because the team just wasn't really fighting. And I think it's almost like a mini Jimmy Butler Minnesota situation where, in practice, Chris was like, all right, like, if you're not going to take this serious as a coach, then I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do here. And he took those second unit guys and were kicking the starters' ass every day. And Lue got tired of it.
Yeah, and by the way, that's the second unit that we were talking about during the preseason. That was awesome. It was John Collins and Brook Lopez, and like everything that they did was working. And man, I was getting frustrated reading that story, because like, why wouldn't you ask him about the Suns and Thunder tendencies? Like, it's insane to me. And just the fact that the coaches could be that petty. I would guess that Harden didn't love him either, because I know that they had a falling out in Houston too, right? Like, it was towards the end of it, I think that they soured a little bit. I'm sure that he had something to do with it as well. I can't imagine it was just Lue, but it was probably Lue being a huge part of it.
I got one more angle here that I wanted to throw at you. This is also not a bet, but I also have this in this game. Holmgren under 1.5 blocks. Without Harden out there, like, they do not shoot at the rim. Like, they're already a team that kind of is rim avoidant, but without Harden, it dips to like 20% rim frequency. So there's not really going to be stuff there. I'm going to assume that Holmgren's not going to be able to stuff Zubac in the times that they match up with each other. And so the opportunities for Holmgren to come over as a help defender and block some shots at the rim, I think are going to be really, really minimal here in this game. So I thought under 1.5 blocks was something worth looking at too.
Yeah, Holmgren has also had fewer than, one or fewer blocks in 14 of the 22 games he's played this year. And like I just said before, there's a chance he doesn't play the fourth quarter too. So that could help you as well if you're looking for that. So that is a good look as well. All right. Another game that I was trying to cross off because it is a lopsided spread. It is the Wizards going to San Antonio to take on the Spurs. San Antonio laying 14.5, totals 241.5. I'll be honest, I was more intrigued by this game than the other one, just because I do think that the Wizards could be fun to bet on, but I try to avoid the bigger point spreads when we have these massive slates, but you have something, so we're talking about it.
Yeah, so this was to me just kind of a number thing. And so let's go back to the championship game against the Knicks, and maybe, whatever Wembanyama was dealing with off the court had something to do with it. But we saw, I think, a point of evidence, Zach, that the Spurs are at their highest point right now with the power rating. With Wemby back, by upending the Thunder, you're on a neutral court against the Knicks, the best team in the Eastern Conference, and the market's like, that's a 2.5 point spread. And yeah, they led, but that was a game in which all of a sudden you saw in the fourth quarter, like, no, Mitchell Robinson came out and grabbed 6 offensive rebounds, and they were hitting open 3-point shots. And the Knicks are a much better team, and the market, I thought, was a little overzealous in power rating the Spurs as high. And I think this might be some of that carryover here for San Antonio. I mean, you look at some of the recent results this season in terms of, hey, let's pick this team like a really big favorite. How have they handled it? There haven't been many successful forays into being a very big favorite for the San Antonio Spurs so far this season. And I do wonder if maybe that we're at like the peak of the market here. It's just purely a number thought. And that we're maybe power rating San Antonio a little too high after a win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I took a stab with the Wizards plus 15. To me, the number I thought was a little bit more fair in the range of like 12 as opposed to 15 and a half. So that was my only logic here.
Yeah, and I'll add that like the Wizards, I think have been a little bit underrated all season. Like I keep seeing all the jokes about their record, but like they've been a way more competitive team this year than they were last year, and they're a way more talented team this year than they were last year. So for as bad as that record might look, and like I do think their team is going to need to move on from Keith eventually, but I do think this is a team that's a little bit better than people think, and there's something to be said about the Spurs having been in Vegas as well. Like they didn't win like the Knicks did, probably didn't celebrate the way they did, but they were definitely out there playing while other teams weren't, and probably a stressful, taxing week. So definitely a little bit to that too.
It is kind of odd. I mean, it's not like like you said, it's not like the biggest trip in the world to go from Las Vegas back to San Antonio and whatnot. But, you're out there for 4 days or whatever it is and, doing whatever you're doing, whether it's media obligations or everything else in between. And then to just get 1 day off to go right back into like the regular season grind, I think is a little interesting. I haven't looked off the top of my head to see how these teams have fared coming out of the Vegas trip, which maybe we should, but that's also a factor too.
Yep, absolutely. Want to bet smarter this holiday season? VSiN has the perfect gift for you or the sports bettor in your life. Right now, you could take advantage of our holiday special and get VSiN Pro access through May 1st for just $79. That gives you everything we do, including daily best bets from VSiN hosts and guests, real-time betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, AI-powered prop tools and weekly wide receiver cornerback matchup edges, 24/7 video and full show replays on the VSiN Watch app, complete coverage of every major sport through the spring, from football and hoops to March Madness, the NFL Draft, and the Masters. Plus, you'll get all of our postseason betting guides and expert picks, including for the college football playoff and the Super Bowl. Don't miss this limited time holiday special. Head to vsin.com/subscribe and unwrap your betting edge today. That's vsin.com/subscribe. All right, moving on to one of the other games for tonight. We have the Raptors taking on the Bucks in Milwaukee. That is a game where Toronto is laying 5.5 points. The total is 219.5. RJ Barrett is out for the Raptors. Giannis is out for the Bucks. And then it looks like Cole Anthony, AJ Green, and Kyle Kuzma are questionable for Milwaukee. Anything stand out to you in this one?
No, I mean, I do wonder how this Bucks team looks on offense against Toronto defense. So, I mean, Toronto's defense, you know what they are. They're big, they're strong. I think they're going to be able to match up with it. We've talked about how Milwaukee tends to kind of revert back to just a jump shooting team. That was last Thursday when they were taking on Boston. It is crazy to me, by the way. Between the time I've been with you, these teams have maybe played like 2 games.
I know it's
not like they've got like 3 or 4 games since we talked to each other last. And that was the win that they had against Boston. This is about a 9.5, 10-point dog. But I do think that this team, and they followed that up, by the way, with 2 days off and then just 82 points against the Nets. I do think that it seems a little too easy. It's one I stayed away from. But to me, immediately, it was going to be Toronto or nothing here without Alex Antetokounmpo and, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, Alex being the big one. I don't know when that trade stuff's going to come to a head. But I do think that Toronto would be the look for me if I were taking something here. Milwaukee has not been as good in the backcourt, as they were to start the season. Like the Ryan Rollins stuff has slowed down quite a bit ever since Kevin Porter Jr. came back. And, no Cole Anthony potentially, that could hurt them. And if Green doesn't play, that's like their number one source of like easy offense. So that would be, Toronto or nothing for me. I did end up taking Emmanuel quickly over 16.5 points though at minus 112. He's averaging 17 a game in the 2 games he's played against the Bucks this season. Milwaukee has been really weak defending above the break threes this year, 23rd in the NBA, and quickly scores 50% of his points from there. Like this is a guy that wants to take, pull-up jumpers off the dribble jumpers. And I think this is the type of team that you want to be facing when you're doing that, because the Bucks can struggle to guard in isolation as well. So I think this is going to be the type of quickly game where he's just going to be taking a lot of shots and hopefully he's making them, but he is averaging 17.8 in the 9 games he's played without RJ Barrett this year. So I think that's a pretty, reasonable total.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of. I think that makes a ton of sense here. And they, like the Bucks have been a pretty good statistical transition defense, but obviously a lot of that was with Giannis out there. Without him out there, I think that's going to make a little bit of a difference in terms of their inability to get back in a proper way. And like you said, you could see quickly as he does it a lot, pulling up in transition, and just if he's got space, I think he'll take it.
Yep. By the way, I mean, I shouldn't talk more about this because it's going to be a long show, but I was under the impression that the Bucks would only have 2 tradable first-round picks this summer. It becomes 3 on draft night, and that's why I think that there's an interesting case to be made that Giannis should just stay because there is no market for him, and then they should go big game hunting in the offseason.
Sure. I think that makes some sense. I mean, it just depends on whether or not he just feels like he's just done being in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
At least he's not doing the Travis Kelce thing where he's like, I hope the Bucks are really excited for their future.
Yeah, I noticed. I didn't know if other people had caught it, so I'm happy that people did. I thought that was the weirdest thing ever, the way you spoke about that.
Right. The Chiefs are going to get him back.
Yeah, the Chiefs.
You're on the team right now.
All right, now we're coming to a game that I probably should have crossed off, but I'm going to want to talk about it. It's the Rockets at the Pelicans, 8 p.m. Eastern tip. The Rockets are laying 9.5, totals 234.5. I ended up playing the Pelicans in this game at +10 and -108, and that's because Houston's coming off 3 straight non-covers, and New Orleans is a team that's been quietly really, really competitive, kind of in a way that Indiana was, where it's like we wrote them off to start the year, but all of a sudden they're rattling off covers at an outrageous rate. So they've won back-to-back games outright, but they're 11-3 against the spread in their last 14 games. And they have Zion back as of last game. They also have Jordan Poole back, if you care about that. Just a team that I believe is starting to get a lot closer to what that front office envisioned. And maybe it's not a front office that a lot of people, believe in, but I do think this is a team that's quite talented for a bad team. And under James Borrego, they are 0-6 straight up when facing teams that outscore opponents by 3 or more, but they are 6-0 against the spread in those games.
Yep.
So they might lose this game, and they probably will, but I do think that there's a chance that they keep it close. And I keep an eye on Jeremiah Fears because I think that his dribble penetration is going to be something to watch. This New Orleans team has been playing really fast ever since kind of throwing Fears and Queen in there. They're fifth in the league in pace over those last 14 games, and Houston wants to play slow and they want to bully you.
No, I think the word I use for New Orleans now is that they're just more competent now. They're not just disjointed, poorly coached mess that doesn't really have a direction. I think you and I talked about it either last week or the week before. Borrego's come in and just given them a sense of direction. He was good in his time with the Hornets, and we were just kind of waiting to see if he was going to get another opportunity. And this seems to be it here with New Orleans. And, you mentioned the Poole thing, you make a joke, but look, Poole's just got some upside on offense. And I think that's what this team is looking for. It goes back to the word competent. Like there's at least some sort of just competence and excitement when it comes to their personnel on this roster. And while they're not going to be anybody's, pick to win the Western Conference or make the play-in, on any given night with the upside that they have on offense with the pieces they have, I think they're going to be a pain in the ass as you move forward. So I'm with you, at least in terms of backing them as we move forward and maybe looking at this extending out. And against the Rockets, given the stretch they have been on and the games that they've had to play, some high leverage contests coming off the game against the Denver Nuggets. I know they've had a couple of days in between, but I do think that this would be something worth looking at. And the Pelicans have proven that I think that they're going to be a team that can stay inside of these numbers now that Borrego's out there.
Yeah, I'm interested also, like, when does Murray come back? Because this can only get better. I mean, because he's going to be instantly like their best guard defender and a guy that can organize the offense.
Well, and I'm sure, as you pointed out, and it should be reiterated, they're also going to be a team that wants to win. I mean, they don't have this pick. So, like, if you talk about, like, adjusted win totals for this team, that might be something worth looking at as the season goes along, only because they will try to win games because they have nothing to lose. There is a pick that's floating out there, and in fact, they'd be motivated to do so as an organization just to make that pick not look as bad that they shipped off.
Yeah, if that pick ends up being 5 or 6 and Queen's the player that he is, then Dumars is saved. I mean, I still think that the process was awful, but like they weren't wrong in thinking maybe Queen's better than the 3 guys in this draft. Like that's not that crazy of a take. It was just that they could have probably gotten up and drafted him for cheaper.
Sure. But I mean, you could also argue you could have Queen and you couldn't have had Queen. Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, they also could have taken Queen where they took Fears if they loved him that much. I don't know. I guess I like
and
the
had
Fears
AJ DeBonsta or whatever.
Yeah. I like the Fears and Queen. They could have gotten that pick without giving up the unprotected first next year. They probably could have done a few years from now or something. I don't know. It was a short-sighted move, but I just want to say that they're validated in thinking that like Queen might be better than those 3 guys in the draft.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to Pistons at Mavericks. This is another game that I have a play for. The Pistons are laying 6.5 in Dallas. It's a 228.5 point total. Do you like anything here? I think AG and D'Lo are questionable. Kyrie and Lively obviously out.
Yeah, if you were going to tell me that Anthony Davis was going to play, I think I'd lean a little bit here toward the Mavericks. Just given the way that this team is, I think, played as of late, they're showing, I think, a little bit more excitement. Obviously, they had won 5 out of 6 before the overtime loss to the Jazz, where all of a sudden they just kind of lost their defensive flow. Second time in a while, too. I mean, I think it was the Thunder the other night had like an offensive rating like 140 against them, but I don't think there's any shame in getting roasted by the OKC offense. I think what I'm really curious about, and I don't know what you have here, but if Cooper Flagg's going to continue to do this, coming off of a 40-point game, he has been absolutely great. You've pointed this out to me. He's really started to turn it around. His scoring has just completely exploded here. And you do wonder against a Pistons team that I don't think really has like a solid match for him on defense, what this is going to look like for him against Detroit. And the Pistons, too, as we've kind of talked about, can you keep this up? You play a tough game on the road against Boston. A couple of days later, now you're out against Dallas, who's playing a little bit better. If Davis is out there, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge, but I'd want to have him out there before anything else.
Yeah, I ended up taking the 6 last night with the Mavericks, and now it's at 6.5. So the people that complained about me having good line moves all the time, there you go. I got a bad one. But I do think that this is a game where I'm really hoping AD plays. It was a big part of my handicap. This is a Mavericks team that is top 10 in the league in defensive rating, and I think that Detroit can be a little bit shaky offensively, and the Mavericks have been way better offensively ever since they put Nembhard in there, giving him some really strong minutes. I think this is a team that can score a little bit, and you mentioned it. Flagg's been on fire. I thought you were going in the route of Flagg to win Rookie of the Year is still a good value because I do think it is. But
I think so too.
I think this is a Dallas team that they really can keep games like this close, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win it as well.
It's still only like minus. I haven't looked for like a day, but it was minus 140 last time I looked.
It's minus 190 now, but I think that given what he's done since it was minus 140, he had the 40-point game. I think there was another really big performance there. I just kind of think that he's running away with it. I don't know. Maybe if Queen just continues to put up near triple doubles every night, but he doesn't do that every night. He's kind of every other night, 2 out of every 3 nights. Flagg is pretty consistently a flat baseline of 18, 19.
And they want to give it to him. We do this all the time with some awards and some players. The voters are dying to give Victor Wembanyama Defensive Player of the Year, which, by the way, did you see that wrinkle? How the NBA Cup is not a regular season game, but it counts toward Wembanyama's 65 games played.
Oh, my God. That is really strange.
Yeah, the Spurs confirmed that to a couple of reporters. So they don't count toward the regular season stats or the standings, but it counts as a regular season game played for Wembanyama to reach the 65 games and for any player in it to reach the 65-game minimum.
So he's got 7 he can miss now or 6?
I think somewhere in that range, yeah.
Okay. I still don't think he's going to play enough, but
I don't think so, but that could matter, It
could matter. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's really crazy that it's the type of thing where it's he's either going to hit the 65 games or not, and that's going to determine who wins the award.
Yes,
it's crazy that there's no wiggle room in between where he plays the 65 and doesn't win. That's not possible.
It's a good way to decide awards for sure.
Yeah, it's just banking on his health. All right, let's move on to the Magic at the Nuggets. 9 p.m. Eastern tip. This is a really, really good game. One that probably more than any on the slate. I'm looking forward to, maybe outside of my Suns taking on the Warriors. But I actually don't have anything here. Nuggets are laying 6.5. Totals 237.5. Do you have anything in this one?
So this is what I wanted to talk to you about and see if you had anything. So we're seeing Paolo Banchero slowly ramp up. We know that for the Magic, right? De Silva's questionable. Suggs isn't playing. Wagner's not playing either. But the more important Wagner is not playing. I think the other non-important Wagner is still out as well. But either
very
way,
important.
Yes, yeah, there we go. But so Paolo, we've seen him not only ramp up in terms of the minutes. He came back, played 20, 24, 32, now 35 in the last time out. With Suggs out, with Wagner out, I think a good chunk of this shot load is going to fall on his shoulders. He had 21 shot attempts the last time out and scored those 25 points. Not particularly efficient. But for Denver, Zach, with, of course, Aaron Gordon not playing, with Peyton Watson potentially questionable, I just go back to the same thing we talked about with the Thunder and Zubac. Who are you throwing on Paolo Banchero that you're comfortable with defensively, that you think a guy who's going to take probably 20-plus shots tonight is going to be able to hold him down. You know, his point total prop was at like 23.5 across the market. I'm looking right now. Yeah, 23.5. FanDuel has 22.5. They want to lay a price at like minus 125 to the over. And I think that 22.5 seems like something he can achieve here against Denver. He's really good at pressuring the rim. I think he's going to be able to get what he wants. In terms of shot attempts, I'm pretty confident that he is going to get those shot attempts. And to ask him to score 23 or more points tonight, I thought was a fair ask for Banchero.
Yeah, that does seem really low. I'd also say like the assists seem pretty tempting too. If that's, I believe it's 4.5 right now,
Sure.
just because I do think that like Edelman's going to try to throw some like extra defenders or some zone out there, and there's going to be really good opportunities for Banchero to find some open shooters. But yeah, I think this probably does line up to be a pretty big Banchero game. And I'll be honest, the one thing I have written down here is that I lean over, because I think that both these teams are worse defensively with the injuries on the injury report. I mean, you look at the Magic. It's only been 3 games without Wagner, and it hasn't, derailed too much, but they have slipped in both offensive and defensive rating. But I think that offensively, they'll have a little bit more success going against a Denver team with no Gordon and no Brown. So I think this is going to end up being a game that is probably higher in scoring. And if that's the case, Banchero probably has a pretty big game.
Yep. So, yeah, their points or points and assists, like you pointed out, if you wanted to go in that direction. Points and assists, lowest number out there is 27.5. And I think that seems like a fair, especially you're talking about like minus 118 is the price that's being out there to lay that.
Yep. All right. Well, the other game of the night that I would say, maybe this is just my bias talking, but I do the Warriors at Suns. Tips at 9 p.m. Eastern. The Warriors are favored in this game, minus 1.5. Totals 231.5. I don't have anything traditional here. I mentioned before, I have the Suns plus 8.5 with the Pacers plus 10.5. So wanted some extra cushion, but I do think this is a game where I'm not really sure why Phoenix is an underdog. And I do think there's a really good chance that the Suns win this one. I'm trying not to be, the Suns fan, just with the blinders on, but man, the Warriors are 6-10 this year with a minus 2.3 net rating on the road. Suns are 8-5 and plus 5.1 at home. And I think that, there's some weird drama boiling with that Golden State team where it sounds like Kerr's going to play Kuminga tonight, but I don't think he wants to play him whatsoever. And that whole situation is like just rearing the ugly head that I think that everyone thought it would around this time of year as Kuminga kind of approaches, tradability.
The email as well, like
the
weird thing getting leaked at the email and the fan and Lakem. No, I'm with you. This is one game on my notes too that I just wanted to ask you about. I know Grayson Allen's questionable to play here today, and that was kind of going to be for me like the one thing if he plays. I'm with you. Like, I don't know why this wouldn't be like Suns minus 1.5 or anything in that range. I think they deserve that given the way they've played for the season and at home. Everything floating around this Warriors team that is non-basketball related. It just seems like this is one of those groups that maybe, there were some expectations for, but whatever it is, and sometimes there's just teams like that, they just can't really seem to keep it together, whether it's, there was that stretch where they all got sick and guys were in and out of the lineup and dudes have been injured and everything like that. I just don't trust that this Warriors team is being priced the way it is by the betting market. They haven't been that group, and the market's been kind of wrong in the way they've priced Golden State throughout the year.
Yeah, and like the Horford acquisition, it's just turned into like he's just has not been able to stay on the floor as an older player normally does. Like I thought that was going to work out really well for them because I thought he played well for Boston and did a really good job of keeping his body healthy last year. But all of a sudden he got there and it's like the age hit him like a ton of bricks. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, they're just like all of the old stuff that we talked about going into the year is just crushing them, with Butler being the one that's like, he's healthy, but he looks washed. I don't know. I don't want to say that he is yet because like there's time for him to kind of play his way out of that, but just has not given them much of anything offensively.
What's going to happen. They're going to do this. They're going to limp through this portion. They're going to come out of the All-Star break. And I'm sure like the last month of the season, they're going to finish like, whatever it is. Like, let's say it's like 13-2 and everybody's going to say like, oh, here we go. And like, this is the team. And then they're just going to look small and old when they get to the postseason against a lot of there's a lot of big young teams in the Western Conference, man. And, this is a smaller, older team. And I think that's ultimately going to hold them back here. And against the Suns, like, they're your team as well. They skew a little bit younger. They're kind of strong. They're a good group. They play team defense, and that's going to be really hard. And they've got a couple of guys that I think are going to be capable of chasing Curry around while also matching up physically with Jimmy Butler, who hasn't played very well.
Yeah, and I think this is a game that like Mark Williams can really dominate in the paint. Like he's been so good for the Suns, and I was actually looking at the 10.5 and 11.5 because he's pretty consistently scoring like 13 to 15. And honestly, he's had a few, 20-plus point games, and this Warriors team is small. So I could see Williams having a really good game. And, to the Allen point, like, it would be nice to have him out there, but the Suns are like weirdly deep with guards, like to the point where they could play Royce at the 2 if they need to. Bouyer's giving them good minutes. I mean, Gillespie's been great. So I think that they're fine in the backcourt. I mean, it would be nice to have a spot-up shooter of Allen's, caliber, but they've been really doing well without, these guys.
I'm laughing because I had a memory of texting you guys last week when I was watching the Suns. Was it last week, Suns Timberwolves? And I watched Naz Reid get blown by Bouye. And I just was like, I just go back 2 years ago to the whole Rudy Gobert thing of people trying to say that Reid was a better defender.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a really interesting situation over there, too. The Timberwolves are falling apart, too.
Yeah. I mean, look, everything's coming up. It goes back to my quiet love. I think I texted you guys months ago. I was like, I'm afraid to say it, kind of like the Spurs here in this Western Conference. And, the Lakers, one would assume, unsustainably 9-0 in clutch games. Like, that's not going to keep up. And the top 4, I'm going to say, seems pretty likely in whatever order: Thunder, Nuggets, Rockets, and Spurs.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to end with Lakers Jazz because I'm going to put my foot down and say we are not talking about the Kings and Blazers because I have no interest in talking about the Kings without Zach LaVine. But Lakers at Jazz, this game tips at 9 p.m. Eastern. Lakers are laying 7.5 and the total's 243.5. This one's actually really hard for me to call because I think we saw a really lopsided Lakers win in the first time these two met. They won by 14. It really should have been more than that. And then the second game, Lakers only win by 2. And you look at what Keontae George has done in December, averaging 26.5 points per game, 6.5 assists per game, and his shooting splits are 48, 43.6, and 92.3. This is a team that I'm really started to become infatuated with, and they've won 2 straight. They've won and covered in 5 of their last 8. I don't know what to make of this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Utah keeps it close.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm with you. So let's go their last 9 games here for the Lakers. The defense has fallen off a cliff. 123.5 defensive rating over the last 9 games. And again, like, this is kind of like the theme for the Lakers this year. You've given up 123.5 points every 100 possessions in non-garbage time. And yet here you are, you're 6-3 in those games with a negative 1.1 net rating. Like, you shouldn't be able to do these things with the statistics that you're putting up. And now with the upside of a team like the Jazz coming in here with this offense, this was also on my list of plays to discuss. It was one of those, like, what am I missing specials? Like, I'm getting 7.5 at home with the Jazz against a team that over the last 9 games has been one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. If you want to trust that with the ISO scorers in LeBron and Luka that they're going to be able to get through a tight game and win it, I can understand that. But dude, like Hard Rock right now, if you're somewhere there, they're popping 8 right now. Why would I trust that they can cover that number given the way they've been playing defensively for the last 2 weeks?
I'm tempted to say we should make this a friendship pick because I was like leaning Jazz side, and I've been, infatuated isn't even like the word. I'm like borderline obsessed because I've gotten to the point where, like, I'm now seeing what they see and that, like, they should just keep marketing around and that they're closer than other people think to, like, being an actual playoff team and not just like a play-in team, like a top 6 in the West team, because George is a borderline, like, dude that you like a core player of a team. I think that, like, what he's done from last year to this year, I think that you can move forward saying our 2 guys are George and Markkanen, and we just need to figure out who it is around them. And I kind of think that Kessler is a really good starting center in this league, and I think that Bailey's looked really good this season. So I think this team's really close, and I think they're going to be competitive the rest of the way as long as they have Markkanen out there. And to my knowledge, he's not on the injury report. They do occasionally get, weird with it, and they'll just kind of pull it. Oh, he is on the injury report.
Yeah,
now,
he is.
So.
He's questionable. And I think that's probably why you get to 8 is like why this is questionable. But I would assume he's going to be, like, we'll see if he's going to be out there or not. But after some extended rest, I'm going to assume that the injury is not serious enough, that he's still, after some time off, that he's not going to be out there. And so if that's the case, it's a little bit of a guessing game to take 8. But I think that's worth looking at because we'll grab 8. The number closes 6. And then you'll sit there and see if they can stay inside of it.
Would you rather have 6.5 knowing Markkanen's playing, or 8 now? And
that's a good point.
I might be willing to wait there, but I do think this is a game where I could see myself ending up on Utah. I think I've been really impressed with the way that they've been playing lately.
Yep, would agree.
Okay, so we'll hold off on the friendship and we'll keep an eye on the injury
Our
reports.
friendship's not that strong.
Yeah, no. It's going to have to wait. It's going to have to wait until we say it's time to put your hoops IQ to the test with Better Picks. Open the Better app, pick more or less on your favorite players' points, rebounds, and assists, then watch the sweat in real time. Use code VSiNPOD for $10 free, no deposit needed. Plus, Better's got insane multipliers up to 1,000x on just 2 picks. Download Better, that's BETR, and get in the game with promo code VSiNPOD, VSINPOD. We've talked a lot about player props on this show. I always say if you get $10 free to do some player prop stuff, this is a really good show to listen to, and then Better's a really good place to go and execute. So I'll head over there and do it. All right, well, we've talked a lot about tonight's games. Now is a good time to recap our Thursday best bets. JVT, what are your official plays for tonight?
All right, so we'll go with Ivica Zubac over 24.5 points and rebounds at -115. This is why I like to talk to you, because my mind has been open, so I'm going to add a couple as well. Chet Holmgren under 1.5 blocks as well, as we discussed in that game between the Clippers and the Thunder. We'll also go to a couple of other spots. Paolo Banchero over 22.5 points tonight against the Denver Nuggets as well. So, and the Washington Wizards +15 against the San Antonio Spurs.
Awesome. All right, and bear with me. I have a ton here. It's like the Chris Jericho list of holds, the from WCW. Very, I'm sure, topical reference that everyone's going to get. Yeah. All right, we'll start with Onyeka Okongwu over 16.5 points at -115 against the Hornets. I have that parlay I mentioned of Pacers alternate +10.5 versus the Knicks, with the Suns alternate +8.5 versus the Warriors. That's only -118. I took that to win 1.5 units, so it's a bigger play for me. I have the Nets +7.5 at -120 versus the Heat. Emmanuel Quickly over 16.5 points at -112 versus the Bucks. The Pelicans +10 at -108 versus the Rockets. And the Mavericks, I have a stale bad number at +6, -114 versus the Pistons. And I'm going to be looking at the injury report for Utah, because if Markkanen plays, I'm going to, hold up my end of the bargain. I'm going to put that play in there and take the Jazz.
As will I.
Awesome. All right, so friendships on holds, but it might be there. We'll talk to Kelly, too, and see if he wants to take it as well.
Oh, yeah, we got to get it there.
But, yeah, I really appreciate you joining us. This is a longer episode, a lot of games to break down. No episode with you next week, but we'll talk the week after that. And good luck with everybody's plays tonight. Hopefully we all have some winners, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Friday edition of Hardwood Handicappers.